Hello and welcome back to a very chilly state of Maine on a Saturday afternoon. We are receiving, like probably most of the Northeast, who knows how far across the country it came. If you look at the jet stream, it comes across the country and heads up toward New England. So we get it last, but we get the leftovers from whatever has happened elsewhere, probably a day before. So Thursday night at midnight, I looked at the temperature, 27 degrees. I woke up Friday morning, 6 a.m., 9 degrees, and for the rest of the day, that was the high. It went progressively lower and lower all day long. Last night, I saw a -19. Other places saw a negative up to -40. And it was windy to boot. And on top of that, we had so much moisture during the week. I was making mud with the tires of my tractor midweek. None of the ground is frozen. When that cold air started creeping into everything, my house sounded like a box of Rice Krispies when you put milk on it. It's just popping and a cracking. I have a front and a back porch, and everything did not like this drastic change of temperature. Now today we're gradually creeping up. Gonna be a cold night, but not like last night, and tomorrow, and at least till midweek, we're gonna be back in the 40s. So I hope everybody affected has survived. Today, we're talking about traction devices, and today we're going to talk about traction bars, slapper bars, potato diggers, whatever you want to call them. A very simple device that on a leaf spring vehicle was the first, I guess, device invented to prevent wheel hop. When you apply power to the drive shaft of a leaf spring vehicle, the pinion wants to climb the ring gear. So the pinion in the car, the rear end wants to go up toward the floorboard. Mopar used just a snubber on top of that banged against the floorboard to prevent that and actually lift the car. Other vehicles' floorboards are not conducive to that, so this simple device was invented, and it's to control what happens when the pinion wants to climb the ring gear. The pinion goes up in the car. It flexes the leaf springs until the point they fight back. It's a spring. If you compress it, it's going to boing back. It's going to get mad and fight back, and that's what happens, and your tires just end up hammering up and down, and it feels like the car's going to break in half. It's pretty ugly. So these prevent that. You remove the U-bolts or T-bolts if you have it. Now, I have a 56 Chevy wagon, two-door 210 handyman, and that has U-bolts. My 55 hardtop needs a set of these, so I need two sets of these, and that has U-bolts. First gen Camaro and third gen Nova had T-bolts, so they had a bracket on the rear end with just little bolts that bolted through the leaf spring and through. This would be just the shock plate with the shock bolts on, but now obviously we have a hunk of square or rectangular tubing welded onto that. And what it does is when things wants to wrap, this hits further up on the front of the leaf spring and prevents that motion. Pretty simple device, works pretty good. And with these, they give you options for remounting your shocks. If they happen to be outboard, you can move them inboard, make an up or cross member. Pretty handy device for cheap money. These eBay units were $102.95. My heater just kicked on, so I'll be back in a minute. It wasn't all that long ago when I got the 71 Nova, ended up being the copper car. That had a set of Lakewood slapper bars on it, and that had the J-bolts that went, you still had a T-bolt in the front, you had a J-bolt that went up over the rear end housing, and there was angular brackets down here, and that was supposed to be an upgrade. But in this form, the simplest form, you just bolt your U-bolts through the plate, tighten it up, and this provides you some adjustment as well as the rubber snubber placement. The set off the 71 Nova, I had sold or traded off, and I couldn't find, I wanted to buy another nice set of Lakewood ones. Instead, I bought these because they were cheap and it was an option. And then I happened into a set of Lakewoods just like this. And we'll do a little comparison in a minute. These are close, but as usual, when things get copied, you know the deal. They shortchange you somewhere. Well, they just miss the boat because they don't really know what they're copying. So with leaf springs, you have other options nowadays. People still going really fast with slapper bars. They're going even faster with a Caltrac type device. You have a plate that bolts on here, and instead of this piece of rectangular tubing, you have an adjustable rod and a pivot at the front eye of the leaf spring. And there's people going really, really fast with those. You see a lot of leaf spring cars, like a lot of these, you know, gasser type cars that are being built for posing, I guess. Some really run good. I don't want to make the gasser people mad, the guys that really run them hard like my buddy does. But a lot of them are just a bunch of junk thrown together to try to look like something back in the day. And you'll see these wild long ladder bars that bolt way up on the frame. And you cannot put a ladder bar with a leaf spring and have it function properly without making the housing rotate independently. Otherwise, you have dissimilar arcs when you try to load the suspension, and everything just gets bound up. You know, Competition Engineering, a few places like that, still sell a housing floater that your housing is now free to pivot on its own, arc that the ladder bar is going to make it, and the leaf spring is just holding the car up. So if you want to run leaf springs and ladder bars, you can do it, but you know, when you go to a car show and look underneath something, you see some big old ladder bar bolted on there, and there's still U-bolts, and the rear end still hooked to here. That's just not going to work. So they made ladder bars for coil spring cars like, you know, Chevelles and cars like that, because those suffered a little bit from wheel hop, despite the fact they have, you know, coil overs, but they have coil springs and somewhat of a 4-link. They were pretty, you know, they were sprung more for a good ride than they were for control and traction. So back in the day, you typically did see ladder bars on those, and those worked well, but those aren't leaf spring cars. So today we're just gonna stick with leaf springs. So let me go get the Lakewood bar and we'll do a little comparison. So it becomes readily apparent that these two are, while they look the same, there's some drastic differences. Length, obviously. This one's about 3.5 inches shorter than the yellow genuine Lakewood, probably back from the 70s, who knows when it was made. Because eventually, if you buy a Lakewood now, I don't know where they're made, but they're now painted black. And this came off, I bought the complete suspension off, I believe it was a 70 Nova. I got everything. And so I know that this fits 1st gen Camaro, 3rd gen Nova. This probably hits a lot closer, if not right under the spring eye, where this is gonna fall short. This rubber snubber is much more generous in length and girth, if you will. This is kind of a joke. The angle, this obviously heads up toward, despite it sitting on this piece of angle iron, but it's still, these are welded, it's higher here than here. These are welded on an angle, so they're up closer to the leaf spring and don't drag on the ground. This, depending on the angle, is probably gonna, that's where they got their reputation as potato diggers. They dig into the ground if you're not careful, loading on your trailer or, you know, going over an obstacle. So it's very likely that these will require some cutting and welding. Big surprise. Good thing they were cheap. But I have options because in one case, I guess in both cases, the 55 hardtop has the spring pockets already. That's why I was hoping this one would work pretty good. We'll see. And the 56 210 wagon, I have the pockets, I haven't installed them yet, I'm not sure which direction I'm gonna go, so I might run the springs in the traditional location and just bolt a set of ladder bars on it and run some tall, skinnier tires on the back. So, but I don't know, that's to be determined down the road. So there are definitely some drastic differences, like the Lakewood also sticks out the back a little bit, just the way they built it. I guess they saved some metal. It's also kind of, it's not really that odd, but you look, there's a lot of caulking and stuff in the metal. I don't know if it was rusty before they actually powder coated it. They did a pretty good job inside, but I guess you can't expect much these days for $100 shipped. So that's probably $70 worth of traction bar. And I gotta be honest with you, I really don't know what this little piece of angle does. As far as the welding goes, I can't say that one is drastically better than the other. In fact, the imported one might actually be a little better looking. And the front shock, this gives you shock mounting options. They also give you one in the back. This one is drastically closer to the middle by like 1.5 inches. They did get the holes right. Both the Lakewood and these is oval holes that go in different directions. I assume for fitment. I saw it first on here and then went to look at those, and yep, same deal. So very interesting. And also, of course, this has, you know, standard SAE and USS hardware. This has cheap metric stuff. I mean, they gave you what could be a shock bolt, but it looks like a grade 2 or less. There's nothing more disappointing. For instance, the 55 hard top has a nice running 383 blueprint engines, crate engine, advertised at 430 horse, 430 torque, 430. Has a TKO 600 5-speed, 9-inch Ford with 410s. Has pretty big rubber under the back, and you can't dump the clutch, and you can't even step on it in first gear because it'll just hop. It's terrible. First thing I noticed about it, you got to get it rolling before you hit the throttle, or you think the windshield's going to pop out, and it possibly could. So that is on the agenda, one of the things to be fixed before next year. That and a Lakewood scatter shield and a few other things. So I don't want to do too much work to the old black 55, but just needs a few items that would make life more fun. Because there's talk of, you know, going to some cruises that might involve racing at a drag strip. Don't get upset. And could be fun. I say racing at a drag strip because it seems the authorities can take your posted videos of you doing, you know, illegal stuff and posting videos of it and use it as evidence against you. So can the EPA as well. Keep that in mind. Careful what you post. Anyway, I hope you're staying warm, your pipes aren't frozen, and life is good. That's all I can hope for, even today, despite the fact being brutally cold. It's a beautiful blue skies and sunny day. So one day closer to spring. Have a nice evening.